According to Barna, 51% of all church-going Americans are unfamiliar with the term the Great Commission. Let's change the stat.
Welcome to GoCast, a podcast designed to inspire and equip pastors and leaders to lead soul-winning churches. We have a mission to go and make disciples. This is GoCast.
Hey everyone, welcome to GoCast. I'm your host, Kelly Stickle, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Tim Tribble. How are you doing today, Tim?
I'm good. It's good to be here again.
That's awesome. Can't wait for today's podcast. We have a great conversation with my friend, Pastor Danny Green of College Station, Texas. Skybreak Church, great pastor. He's been doing this for a number of years. He's got an amazing father's heart, and can't wait to share this conversation with all of you. But before we get to that, I'd like to ask you a question. I mean, you've been involved in leadership in church world for a number of years now, and in church world, it's so easy to get stuck into the week-to-week routine. I mean, every single week we've got another service coming, and we get into this routine where we're just working from week to week, and we get stale. So what have you noticed it takes to avoid becoming stale and focus just week to week and miss the big picture?
For sure. I think every week you have to make an intentional decision to focus on the wins and the small things that are happening. If you don't focus on that, you're going to feel like you're stagnant and nothing's really working, and all the effort you put in just goes to nothing. The other thing is that you really got to free up the people who are the visionaries to be visionaries and let them lead and not row. Right.
And that's so true. That's so good. And Pastor Danny addresses this issue and more, but he talks about this whole idea of really it takes a leader that purposefully pushing the vision and really having to steer the ship outward. The natural drift of every local church is to become insider focused because we get into this routine. It's so easy for us to do. And so it takes a leader intentionally steering the ship outward. And so it is something that he talks about, shares with us how to do that, and how as leaders we need to do that. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Pastor Danny Green of Skybreak Church in College Station, Texas. Well, hey, Pastor Danny, welcome to GoCast. It's so great to have you on the program, my friend.
Thank you, Pastor Kelly. It's an honor.
It's awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in ministry and a little bit of your journey.
So, Kelly, I grew up in church, and we were in children's ministry at the church we attended back in the day in the 60s when we did bus. We bussed in children. We had like 500 or 600 kids a week we would bus in and all that.
Wow.
When I was 12, my dad was sent out to the north part of Houston, which is where we live, the extreme north side of Houston, and he planted a church. So at 12 years old, I went into a church plant with Dad and watched all that happen.
Yeah.
And during that process, at age 15 is when I felt called to the ministry. I've been entrepreneurial my whole life and thought I was going to go into business. That was what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But God had another plan. So I preached my first revival meeting at the age of 17 years old.
Wow.
That's how that all started.
That is awesome. That is so good. That's powerful. So talk to us about your church now, Skybreak Church in College Station, Texas. Hook 'em horns, I'm sure. So from the humble beginnings of where it is now, where it began to where it is now.
Well, I appreciate you asking about that. It's interesting that the place I preached my first revival, which was Bryan College Station, 9 years later, God would call me back to this city to plant a church.
Wow.
I didn't orchestrate that, it's just the way it happened. And so it was in May of 1987 that we came to College Station, Janet and I, and we had our oldest son was 3 years old, our only son at the time. We had everything we owned in the back of a truck and $800 in the bank, and we rolled into town, and that was our strategy to start a church. I didn't have a team. I didn't have a plan. I just knew God had called me to College Station to build a church. And so we just started renting a building and having church. And that's kind of how we got started.
Wow, that's really cool. So talk to us about the church now. So I mean, you planted in 1987. So I mean, this is a large church, and man, you guys are moving and shaking.
Well, Kelly, it was, I was in a denomination. I think this is important. I was in a denomination for the first 8 years we were here. And I thank God for my heritage and what I learned and grew, and learned in that. But I knew we were about 100 people. We were 8 years old. I'm like, there's more. There's something else that was in me. And so I kindly walked away from that. I didn't have any cause or reason. I just felt like God had a new journey for us. And boy, did he. We began to meet some people, get connected with people. And, I won't call a lot of names, but God began to connect us with the right people. I realized there was a bigger world out there than what I was exposed to prior to that.
Yeah.
And we just started over basically again, after 8 years. Some of those people didn't stay with us. Some of those original 100 people, and they're like, what are you doing, But from that journey on, the church began to grow. I mean, not just by handfuls, but it seems like it was just amazing. I mean, so now multiple services on the weekend, hundreds of people come, and we did build a new facility 5 years ago, which was really a blessing to us, and it allowed us to streamline a little bit. We actually now just do 2 services on Sunday morning, so that makes it a lot better.
Yeah,
me anyway. Felt like a vacation. But for many years, did 3 services, couple locations, and all that. Now we're all in one spot here. But it's really rewarding, Kelly, now to see what God is doing. Black, white, Asian, rich, poor, philanthropists, single moms. They're all sitting together in one auditorium, worshiping God, and to all ages. And we're in a college town, of course, and so I'm very humbled and very grateful.
That is very cool. Well, I love a quote that I saw on your website. It says, shoes, shirt, and imperfections required. Man, I love that. So talk to us about that and your passion to reach people where they are at. Kelly,
we sort of adopted, I don't know where it came from or where I heard it, but we just adopted a kind of it's not written anywhere, but we say people belong before they believe or behave. I just got to realizing that everybody belongs. Everybody is God's children. I don't care what gender they are. I don't care what their background is. None of that. What they're doing or not doing. God created every one of them. And so we're like, you're welcome. Come. And it's created some opportunities and some challenges. Because when you open the door for anybody to come, then anybody comes, and they bring with them their lifestyle, they bring with them their issues, and then you got people looking down the row and seeing things going on, and it's not normal. It's in church, and I'm like, I've met with these folks, and I said, look, we want people to have an opportunity to meet Jesus, and where else are they going to meet them? Where are they going to meet him except here?
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell them about Jesus wherever. I get that, but I mean, they're coming. So I think we've really crossed a few hurdles, and people realize that everybody's welcome, and we want everybody to feel safe. I want people to feel safe in church. So we don't use the platform or the pulpit to bash people. And some people say, well, man, you ought to preach against all this stuff. And I'm like, yes, I teach truth. Absolutely, I get that. But sometimes if you do that, you only have one shot to even love on those people, and you get up and ridicule or be hard without a loving heart, and then they're out the door and they'll never be back.
Yeah, so true.
And I'm like, I get it that you can't water down truth. I get that. I'm not saying to do that, but I think you got to be very strategic. And I like what Chris Hodges says, that the church on the weekend is the showroom. We got a mechanic shop going on in the back here. We'll fix all that stuff at some other place. But this is the showroom out here. So we want Sunday to be loving and embracing and gathering and unchurched focused. And so that's I would say that's probably what I mean most by the imperfections. And it's been in my heart my whole life, that passion for unchurched people.
That is so good. That's so good. I love that. And it really is. I mean, having a focus for unchurched people really is, it gets messy sometimes. It's messy church, but I mean, it's following the model of Jesus. Jesus went where the religious would not, and he talked to who the religious would not, and he seemed to reach out to those. And I love that. And I love that heart in your service as well. I read a story not that long ago about Gandhi and how he approached a church. He was looking for Jesus. He had been reading the Bible, searching this, and he actually attended a church or tried to attend a church in South Africa. And because of how he looked and because he wasn't white, they actually chased him away. They said, no Kafirs here. He wasn't dressed properly. He wasn't the right color. They chased him away. And he later said the quote, he says, "Your Christ I like, but it's your Christians I can't stand," and went on to create, what we now, as Hinduism and all of that. And imagine if he had, if the pastors there and the people there had the heart like you had. I heard a similar story about Muhammad with, before he founded Islam, was a Christian and got chastised at church and became so angry and bitter that he started to write the Quran out of that. And so, man, it's something that happens when it does get messy, but when we start reaching out to the lost and the hurting, and that showroom versus the mechanic shop, man, we're not ignoring the mechanic shop, but we got to give them the hope that is Jesus first. I love that. So, but that takes intentional outsider focus, and that means training your people as well, because we can have all the intentions as a pastor and preach it from the pulpit, but it's maintaining that intentional outsider focused in the church. So talk to us about that and some of the ways that you keep your church outsider focused in reaching the lost.
Yeah, it's really, that's an ongoing thing, Kelly. You got to keep doing that to keep people not self-centered but other-centered. I would say that keeping the messages relevant. I really tell the guys on our stage, we talk about language all the time. Don't get caught in church language or insider language. Think about people sitting out there that maybe have never been to church or don't know much about it or had a bad experience. Just be normal. Just be, what I mean, say normal. Talk in a normal voice and say things that matter to everybody, that relate to everybody. And say things that are helpful. Sometimes we get on tangents and they're just not helpful. And so those are words that we really try to keep focused on. We want to be a place, as I mentioned a while ago, this is really huge for me, that everybody feels safe. They feel they can come here and be welcomed. And so that's probably as key of a focus as I could talk about. We guard our culture very diligently, and it's something if we see it, it's not our culture. We've learned to address it right then, which is part of the things we're talking about. Yeah. Our language, making sure that people, what people see and hear, we analyze that. We go back through it again, following up. How did that happen if there's something on stage that goes on and I'm like not preaching that day, but I'm watching the whole service, or I'm here on the front row, I'm taking notes, because how do we get better, make sure that what we say includes everybody. And then I think what's important too is when people walk into the church, they look around and they try to identify, is there somebody here that looks like me?
Right.
And so we got guys in suits and ties, and we got cowboy boots, and we've got, hoodies, and I want people to see somebody that looks like them. And so I think that's very important. We try to do that on our stage. We try to have, the stage, we want contemporary, but people need to look up there and see somebody that, they're like me, then they feel like they're in the right place.
Right. That's really good. Now, when you talk about guarding your culture, do you train, you're talking about training that on stage, but do you train your host teams, your ushers, your greeters as well in language that they use and how they treat people?
We absolutely try to do that. We try to, break that down and make sure people are saying the right way, especially if it's when we're training new people. Here's what we say. Here's what we don't say. I know that there's vision drift, mission drift when I'm not the one saying it to everybody, so it kind of filters down. And we talk about that often as well.
Right.
Let's don't vary from what we say and what we don't say. Make sure we all treat people the same way, so that what we say on our website, they actually hear when they walk in the door, kind of thing. Yes, we do that. I would say we need to do a better job of that. That's why when we're walking around, or one of our leaders are walking around, they see something or how someone's handling a situation, and it's not the culture we want, then we immediately, when that's, when we can, look, let me talk about that. Let's change that. Let's do it this way, because we try to keep it very clear, very easy for people to understand. And I hope I'm answering your question, but that's
that's really good. We've found, and I'm sure you find the same thing, that you get people that come into the church from other churches or from a different church background, and they have an expectation, and they try to bring in the behaviors that they've grown up with or have learned, and it's insider focused type language or treatment or how they do things. And so I think that's really good to guard that culture and to pay attention to that and to watch and to correct it if something is off.
Well, one of our statements is, we are the church and we're here for the world. The church doesn't exist for us. We're the church and we exist for the unchurched in the world.
That's good.
And that's really been a shift from most traditional churches, because the churches are typically their little family, and a newcomer comes in and they're the outsider and they don't know how to get into the group, and then they never come back, right? And so we're trying to totally shift that. Like, no. We want outsiders to feel like, wow, you mean we laughed in church, or they had something fun, or something that was non-religious that they did, but there's truth and there's love and there's worship, and when the power of God is there, I mean, nothing replaces the God factor. When God shows up and people are like, what is that? And we don't want it to be weird.
Yeah.
That could happen too. And we try not, I'm like, no, I don't want any weird stuff going on in here. I don't want, we had something recently, a few months ago, there was someone who was new to our church, and I kept noticing their behavior, and they were coming down to the front, but it was more about them getting attention for themselves. They became more distracted.
Right.
And it really wasn't about worship. And so we had to have a little conversation like, look, why are you coming down there? It's fine to come to the front and worship, but it's like you're the only one, and it seems to be like, people, you're distracting people. Can we talk about that? Well, then, they didn't hang around very long. And I hate that. But
that's an important point, though. That's a really important point, because I mean, you address that, and I've found that too, and we've addressed it as well. But what I've discovered is that people are weird. The Holy Spirit's not, right? But when you address that and saying, yeah, that person walks away and they could leave the church, but if you don't address that, there could be a handful or more of the unchurched or the lost that would leave or not ever come to Jesus because they got distracted because of somebody's behavior.
Yeah, they're not hearing anything else that's going on because they're watching this person down front like, what are they doing? Who is that? And they miss everything else. So I'm always willing to risk that. And I give people the benefit of the doubt. I mean, we let this go on for several weeks, I should say, and it didn't get better. It got worse. So we don't want weird. We want worship, and we want, honesty and safety. And so.
And I like that word distraction as well, because a lot of people, when you talk about Holy Spirit, oh, you're limiting the Holy Spirit, or you're not allowing him to move it, or in some way. But no, if the Holy Spirit is moving, it's not distracting. It's impacting everybody. It's impacting people. When it becomes distracting, it's usually because it's more human focused than it is God focused. So that's a really good word.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right. So talk to us about what's been your most effective strategy as a church for winning souls.
This is going to sound too simplistic, because we've done probably as many things as anyone else has done, from door hangers to television to mailers to friend days to barbecues after church to radio, television, yard signs. I mean, on and on and on and on. Hands down, the best evangelism tool is a person inviting a friend to church.
Wow. Yeah.
Because it is stated time and again, 93% of the people say that if someone they knew invited them to church, they'd probably come.
Wow.
93%. You don't have to build relational capacity. You're not cold calling, like knocking on a door. It's not when they come with a friend, they already have a connection. They don't feel alone. The number one way to grow the church is get the people just to invite their families and friends to come to church.
Right.
Now, are we doing it the best we can? No, we're not. I mean, people get lazy. I get lazy. We have to remind ourselves. We have to go back to that again and again. But
so do you teach them how to invite?
Well, that's a good question. Here's what I say. we don't have a seminar that teaches people how to invite people.
Yeah.
No. But here's what I say over and over again. When you invite somebody to church, just tell your story. Don't think you have to know scriptures in the Bible, where they are. Don't even act like you are a theologian. Stay away from all that. Just tell them your story.
So
because
good.
you know your story and you know what God's done in your life. And so I try to do that often. And so small groups is, of course, another way that we really invite people. That's where relationships are built. So a lot of people come to a small group before they'll come to church, right? You're on the job and you're at lunch and you host a small group like we do several times a year. People will set in on that, and before long, maybe they'll say, "Well, hey, where is this church?" And then they'll come. But it's about relational capacity rather than I saw it on TV and I came, and that happens. But usually it's a multiplicity of things. Like they saw us on TV, then they knew a friend at work, and then a door hanger hit their door, and then they're like, "I think I'm going to go to that church."
Yeah.
But the number one thing is a friend. And I would say, too, one of the things, boy, this may sound like you don't need to say it, but I think it's important. When our church was small and we didn't have a lot of new people, I didn't get very many salvation calls. And I got really convicted about that. This would be years ago when we were really small, because I'm like, well, I know everybody here, and which is a problem, right? And I think you mentioned this in some of our conversations we've had about people getting saved, about newcomers coming to churches. But I just said, we're going to start, and I remember it was one weekend to the next. I said, every single service we have, I don't care if you know everybody that's there or not. And of course, we're larger now, so we don't know who's here.
Yeah.
We are going to give a heartfelt salvation call. We're going to take 3 to 5 minutes, and we're going to invite people to come to Jesus and begin a journey with him every single service that we have, no matter what it is. And I will tell you that has been very effective, because when you give people a chance to get saved, they will.
Well, I think the two things go hand in hand. Don't they? I mean, you give a weekly, every single service, an opportunity for salvation, and people will get saved. But the other thing it does is it gives confidence to your people to now invite, because they know, hey, I can invite my friend to church, and pastor's going to give an opportunity for them to get saved every single Sunday. And I don't have to guess which is Evangelism Sunday and which is when it's going to happen or what's going to go on. I know if I can invite my friend, my coworker, my neighbor, and they're going to come. If they come, they're going to have an opportunity for salvation.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And then we learned, too, another part of our strategy is the clear pathway into the church, Kelly, that people have a pathway into the church. So they get saved. Well, then what's next?
Right.
You won't them if they don't have a pathway. And so we've done, for 20 years, we've had some sort of pathway. And whatever you call it, from new beginnings to make it your church, to starting point, or whatever, but have something that's simple, easy, clear, and so now we've done, and we continue to work on that as well. So give a salvation call and then have a clear path into the church. But having your people invite friends is a number one strategy among anything else we've ever done to reach people.
I think that's fantastic. I mean, there's 3 really key points there that I think all of our listeners need to really pay attention to. And I would say this is a great starting point for pastors and leaders is, start by giving a salvation call every single service, regardless of what you preach. Give a salvation opportunity for salvation. Really talk about invites and encourage your people to invite. One of the things that we do is once a year, we'll survey our congregation on the invite, and we'll ask them, hey, have you invited, and how many are inviting, and how many did you invite, and do you feel comfortable to invite? Because we want to know. That's our key strategy as well. And last year, we had 78% of our people had invited at least one person to church in the last year. Well, that makes a big difference. And then we know if that number flexes one way or another, we know, are we building a service and a church that's conducive to people inviting, or is there a reason why our people are hesitant to invite? Because the invite is really going to be the big key. So that's really key. And then the clear next step into the church. Because Jesus said, go into all the world and make disciples. He didn't say go into all the world and make converts. So, I mean, we want to get them into the church. So that's really good. So how many salvations or baptisms did Skybreak have last year?
So, we've talked about this a little bit, and no pastor, at least me, I'm never satisfied with these numbers, but every number does represent a person that all the angels celebrated over, right? So in 2018, we had 1,473 salvations that we were able to document.
Wow.
Now, that was people that actually filled out a Connect card and went to someone, in other words, the way we do our salvation call, what we do afterward. Now, there may have been people that got saved that didn't fill out a card or didn't stop at the VIP desk or whatever. That could have happened. These are 1,473 people last year that actually did. Now, so far this year, we've seen 694. So our numbers, to me, are close. Looks like we're about tracking like where we were last year. We still got a few months to go.
Right.
This year. So.
But that's the benefit of tracking the numbers, though, because if you don't track those numbers, then you're not going to have the conversation with your team about, hey, are we on mission? Are we not on mission? But that's still, those are big numbers.
I'm very grateful. Like you say, if one person gets saved, it is worth every effort. Because if I was that person, or if it was my dad or my 11-year-old grandson or whatever, wow, that is a huge day for that person and that family.
True.
So now where we are really wanting to and trying to get better at is from salvations to baptisms. So in 2018, we had 136 water baptisms. And so I'm like, man, that's only like that's not where we need to be. So I'm just being really honest here today. And we've tried different things on water baptism. We've done like right now we do them once a month. We do them at the last Sunday of every month. We have water baptism. And so, 10, 12, 15, 20 people, whatever, 25 people. We've done where we had these all calls where it was a special day and we would have like 150 people at one time get baptized.
Wow, yeah.
For example. That takes hours. It's long, but it's fun, it's exciting. So we're back and forth. What works best? What is, so that's where we are. That's our numbers right now. And then our total guests for last year was 1,689 first-time guests that we could document. So far this year, we've had 1,311 first-time guests. And so that's some of that's guesstimated because a card may represent a single person or it may represent a family.
Well, that's just incredible. Just making sure our listeners caught that. So you had just over 1,600 guests in 2018, but you had 1,463 salvations or 73 salvations. That's incredible. So that means that's a big majority of your guests coming in are unchurched.
Well, hopefully that's the way that's how it translates. How else do we look at it? We translate it as best that way as we can. And whether those people stay, you got to consider Easter and Christmas. We have hundreds of people that come, and they may be from out of town or with family, and you may only see them that once or twice. So they may not get baptized because it might not have been that Sunday, but they might get saved. So we're trying to figure out how to really track all of that. If you get, you understand where I'm at.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really, really good. That's amazing. We're tracking, not as many salvations like that, but similar kind of ratios and numbers as well. And we're constantly having those conversations. And I think all of us as pastors probably are, and saying, hey, how can we get more retention? How do we get more of that going on, which is awesome. But talk to me about an individual, one of those hundreds that got saved. Talk to me about someone in your church that got saved, how their life was miraculously changed. Someone that came in unchurched, you wouldn't say is a church person or church background at all, and life changed because they got saved in a service.
Well, I have three in front of me. I picked one here. Tracy Carroll is his name. African American couple, a gentleman, and he came to the church in 2011. He said he kind of grew up around church and what have you. He got married, lived a destructive life, partying, drinking. Marriage was on the rocks because he cheated on his wife. All kind of stuff. It's a good story. I'm paraphrasing. And one Sunday morning in 2011, he woke up out of the blue. He had seen us on TV. Somebody had talked about us. Our church being multicultural definitely is attractive in this community because I'm white, he's African American. And so he said, I woke up that morning and said, I'm going to church. And he said, his wife was like, "You're going to church, you know?" Well, he came, he walked in the door, and the first guy he met was a Hispanic usher who he went to high school with.
Wow.
And that started the journey. He came in, gave his heart to the Lord, went through our, what we call growth track or make it your church, you know, the pathway into the church, began to serve his marriage, healed. He got under the Word of God and just in a small group. Now he serves on our stage crew. It's really humbling, actually. I hug his neck every time if he's serving and I get to go backstage getting ready to preach. He carries the podium out that I'm about to deliver the Word of God through, or whoever's speaking that day. But Tracy, you know, he's humbled, he's honest, he's on fire. He's one of the most, and yet he's quiet, he's behind the scenes, but boy, he's on that stage crew, and he feels like it's the biggest honor in the world to carry that pulpit out.
Wow.
So that I can preach, because he knows somebody out there is just like him. That got up that morning and said, "I'm going to church." And so there's kind of a brief flyby of Tracy. It's been an amazing journey watching him, and he's invited so many people to church. So there's one story that, you know, so he's been here 8 years now. He and his wife, they both serve, and it's just a wonderful thing.
Wow, that is awesome. And you look at people like that, and that's why we do church the way we do church. I mean, that is awesome. That is cool. Well, from the first moment my wife and I met you and your wife, it was obvious to us that you're very passionate about families. You're passionate about your family. You were asking us questions immediately about our family. Talk to us about that passion and how you feel that translates to the church, and in particular, the importance of a local church being a family.
Yeah, I think that's obviously that language is automatic for me. So we don't say join our church. We say join the family, right? It's family is a word you're going to hear often, because that's who I am naturally. And thank you, Kelly, for your compliment. I accept that as a compliment. I love my family. We have 2 adult sons now who are pastors involved, and their wives, my daughter-in-laws, and Janet and I just celebrated 40 years in August. Of
wow,
marriage.
Congratulations.
So thank you. And we call our church our family of choice. And then I get to realizing too, Kelly, that there are so many people who do not understand a healthy family. They've never been a part of one. They don't know what a healthy family should look like. Nobody's perfect. I'm not saying that, but I do understand that, man, the family dynamic is God's way. He created that, you know, and the enemy's been trying to destroy that from the beginning of time. I mean, trying to create chaos in the family. So now we get to do ministry with our sons and our daughter-in-laws. We have 7 grands. You know what that's about as well. I mean,
well, you told me you're talking to your grandkids. I mean, you were with me in Canada here, and you were saying you FaceTime them every single day.
I talk to my grandkids. So our oldest is 11, a girl, and there's 4 girls, 3 boys. Sunday afternoon, this past Sunday after church, our youngest son, Nathan, his wife, and 3 children were over. He has 2 boys and a girl. So the youngest grand is a girl. She's 7 months. So I was in the swimming pool with a 7-month-old granddaughter. Man, I'm telling you, I'm living it. That's nothing else matters. That's to me is the joy.
Yeah, that is awesome.
And it matters that our church sees what family should look like. To me, I think this is huge, very, very important that we be an example of what it could look like to them. My parents have been married 60 years, you know, or over that, and just to see that, I mean, because it's so foreign in our world today.
It's true.
So what I want people to know is they can start this. They may not have had this, but they can begin this, and so that's where I think family is so important. That's what family means to me. And we treat our church people like family, hugging people, kissing people. Of course, that's who I am. I'm a hugger, you know. Some people aren't so much, but that's me. And I think on stage, people can just feel a father's heart when you talk.
Yeah.
But you don't talk down to people or at people. You talk to them.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's really been our journey. And I think that's why people feel comfortable. They feel engaged, they feel loved, because we just try to be real. And then the flip side of this, and boy, it's very humbling for me when you have your children and your spouse here. My kids, your kids know you better than anybody. For my children, who are of course adults and pastors in their own right now, for them to choose to love God and honor me, that all says a lot to people as well, because they see that it's authentic. They know it's real. And so, yeah, so family is just important to me. You know, the first thing I'm going to ask you guys, how's your marriage doing? How you getting along? How's your kids? Because that's the thermometer of every part. I don't want to know about your ministry first. I want to know about you and the family God's given you, because if that's healthy, I don't have to ask about the rest of it.
Right.
It'll be healthy. We can work on that. If the family's not healthy, the church is going to struggle, I believe.
That is so good. I think that's so biblical as well. It's interesting that when the early church leaders rolled out, the org chart for church, they didn't use business terms. They didn't use military terms, even though they were under Roman rule at the time. They used family terms: father, mother, sister, brother. So I think that is awesome, and man, so good. This has been such rich content, such great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your heart. I mean, you can hear the Father's heart just come out of you just in as you respond to that, and I love it. And your heart for the church and your heart for the lost. It's amazing. Man, is there anything that I should have asked but didn't get to?
Well, it's interesting that when you asked me that question and prepared me ahead of time to think about that, the first thing I went to is work to make your marriage strong and let the church know how much you love your spouse from the stage. When you're speaking, show honor, have fun. I do that often. So it kind of relates to what we were just talking about. But I think people feel very assured and confident, and they feel safe again when they know that my marriage is strong and Janet and I are loving each other. And, I don't we have fun picking on each other from the stage, but not in a cruel or undermining way. You understand what I mean? But just having some fun. And I tell people when I first met Janet, it was like our third date. I invited her to I asked her to marry me. And she said no. And then I say, but a few months later, she came crawling back. Be something like that, just having fun. But you talk about it like that, but here we are 40 years later. That's what I'm saying. I think if anything you didn't ask, I would tell leaders is be honest, be real, be authentic. Don't let the stage be a therapy session. I don't mean that.
Yeah.
Your pulpit's not your therapy session. But people need to know that you're a real person. And so, something you didn't ask me about, that's something I would say, talk about your family. The people want to know. If they get a peek inside of your life, they think, well, he may know something that can help me. That
is so good. And that's really a part of, that kind of focus is really a part of what you talked about earlier about creating a place to belong first before people can believe in and become. And I think that's one big way to do that is to show them family, show them marriage, strong marriage. Man, this has been so good. And I know there's pastors listening and leaders listening who would love to learn more about you, your ministry, kind of follow what's going on. So where can our listeners connect with you online?
Thank you, Kelly. Well, we are Skybreak Church in College Station, Texas. So online, it's skybreakchurch.com, of course, or the Skybreak app. We have that available if you go to the App Store. On social media, Twitter and Instagram, it's at Danny H. Green. And the same basically for Facebook, it's Danny Green. So, we'd love to help anybody communicate however we can. And it's been a real treat for you to ask me. Thank you. I'm really humbled you invited me to do this.
Well, thank you so much, Pastor Danny, for coming on air with us and for sharing your heart and what you guys are doing in ministry. And it really is impressive and quite something to see. And we're cheering you on. We're excited. So thank you so much for adding to our program.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Welcome back. What a great conversation again with Pastor Danny Green.
Just awesome.
Oh man, so much rich content again. What stood out to you? What was your big takeaway?
I didn't say this directly, but just talking about making the church a relational church. And often it's really easy, like you say, a lot of time to get insider focus, but we're finding it's just as much effort in reaching the lost as it is to put into the people together perspective on the lost that are coming into church and not making about themselves, but it's building a family within this thing.
Yeah, it's so true. I love his priority of making a place to belong first.
Yeah.
That is so good. That's a big challenge for me as a leader. Always, I like systems. I like, leading in systems and details and behind the scenes. And then often forget or neglect the idea that, hey, the church is about people and it's about relationship first. Jesus led with relationship first. Right. The early church led with relationship first. And that is so, so valuable. So I'm really challenged by that whole idea of putting relationship first and making a place to belong first. Man, so good. I hope you got as much out of it as we did. An amazing, again, podcast with great content. So we've got more coming. We're excited about it. So where do people join with us and subscribe and all the rest of it, join the conversation at GoCast?
Yeah, sure. You can go to iTunes and subscribe to the GoCast network, or you can go to the website at gocast.ca.
That's right. And you can also join with us on Facebook or on Instagram and join the conversation there. Weigh in. We'd love to hear from you and your ideas and what you've got going on and celebrate you. We want to create a community that is really based around this whole idea of soul winning. We're trying to create a movement that is soul winning churches. And if you are having success and things are working for you, we'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to have questions that you'd love answered, we'd love to hear from you. So join in the conversation. Well, next week, we are going to continue on with Pastor Danny. We're going to invite his son to join us. We're going to do a podcast with both Danny and Nathan, his son, because they have an amazing story. They have been working on a 15-year succession plan.
That's a long
15
time.
15 years, man. I can't think 15 weeks, but I mean, 15 years. And so we talk about that whole idea and how they've made it work. And so without further ado, here's a snippet from my conversation with Pastor Danny and Nathan Green.
So from a front row seat, I've watched a generation ahead of us, in my opinion, didn't know how to transition well. And so their pulpit was their identity. And so I told Janet, when I was 49, I'm 59 today, I was rolling into my 50th birthday. I said, we got to get this right, and we're going to start right now. I don't know what this is going to look like, but I think we got 15 years to make the journey. So we're going to start, and I don't want it to be drastic. I want it to be smooth. And so I felt like it's like 3 5-year windows. And I can't say this is a real well thought out strategy, but there's going to be 5 years of training that we need to do. Really just be intentional about training. Don't assume anything. Then there's going to be a second 5 years of us doing this together. You're going to do it. I'm going to do it. We're going to do this together, hand in hand. And then there's going to be 5 years of affirmation, 5 years just showing support, being on the front row and like, go, go, go. You're the man. And let the church see me support the new leader 100%, not just, hey, here's the church and then I'm gone.
Well, it's going to be great. Can't wait for the next episode with Pastor Danny and Nathan Green. Thank you so much for joining us again at GoCast. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of GoCast. We hope you feel inspired and better equipped to take your community for Christ. Make sure to subscribe to receive each new episode as it's released. Let's go and break the stat together.